One.
Welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. So, Jay, today the WBO announced that they were officially ordering Terence Crawford versus Sebastian Fundora, which is very interesting. Now, we saw that Errol Spence this past weekend jumped in the ring to throw his hat or throw his name in the hat in terms of the opportunity to face Fundora next. We don't know what's going to end up happening with that, but officially it's supposed to be Terence Crawford versus Sebastian Fundora. Now, Sampson, who is the representative of Fundora, just here recently mentioned that they had a verbal agreement with Tim Zoo to give him a rematch, which is also interesting. And they are planning to honor that verbal rematch, which would make a whole lot of sense. Now, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if a verbal agreement would hold up in court, but
Yeah.
you would think, and I think most people would believe and feel that Tim Zoo should get the opportunity to face Fundora next. Um, so I would be interested in seeing how all that play out. We got a whole lot of things that are currently going on with this whole dynamic. Errol Spence is trying to throw his name in there, Jay. He's backed not only by the PBC, but other entities that are currently at play. Then you got Terence Crawford, who is backed by the WBO, and they just announced. And now you got Samson, who is trying to honor a rematch agreement with Tim Zoo. Personally, I think it should be Tim Zoo. I think Tim Zoo should get the opportunity to run it back just by the way that the fight ended up playing out. Tim was honorable in the fact that he continued to fight on. Personally, if it were me, I would have just said, hey, let's call it a day after round four. I have already banked the first two rounds. At worst, this will be a draw, and I walk on and live another day to fight another opponent, preferably Errol Spence or Terence Crawford. So if I'm Tim Zoo, I could have taken an easy route out. He decided not to. So there's just so much going on there, Jay. But what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I give Tim all the credit in the world for taking a fight like this on 12-day notice. 6'6", 10-inch reach advantage over you. Yeah, I mean, that's not something that you can just change your game plan within the last 12 days when you fight. Your game plan is to fight an orthodox fighter that's 5'8", with the same reach as you, or maybe slightly. I can't remember Tim. I think Thurman had shorter reach than Tim did. So I give Tim all the credit in the world. He was a warrior fighting in there. Fundora was a warrior fighting in there with a broken nose after round one or two. So I give both those guys all the credit in the world. Samson said this on the boxing voice rather, saying that he's a man of his word. He said it was kind of emotional, so that's why he needed another day. He's like, actually, Louis DeCuba is probably going to be doing the negotiations on this as far as the letter they got from the W. He said he just got it this morning and started reading it. He says that they're looking to possibly fight Tim in a rematch in November is the time frame what he's talking about there. Yeah. So I mean, that knocks off both Spence and Bud if they go that route. And if fans are really going to be fans about it, that will crying about a rematch possibly. Tim should get this rematch over both of them, honestly, in all fairness, because that cut did make a big difference in that fight, hands down. That you can't dispute that. That was a big difference in this fight. On there, not saying that Fundora would have still won or Tim would have came back, but it definitely. I mean, it was clear as day it made a difference. Tim couldn't see. But Samson he's still saying that he's kind of emotional, so he's kind of taking a day, it's kind of taking a step back a little bit to look at everything. He also said a little bit in that interview that talked about Bud, who would sell more. He said Spence and Fundora would sell a lot more than Bud and Fundora would as well. And he said Spence said Bud is looking for a payday. That's why he tried to get the fight with Canelo. He said that he's trying to get a payday. So I mean, Samson didn't mince no words on that. In that interview earlier today, actually it was just a few hours ago maybe that they did it. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. But to see that he's really looking to try to honor the rematch, you can't be mad at him for wanting to do that. Can't be mad at him at all. Especially because the fact his fighter was losing the first two rounds until that cut happened.
Yeah, I want to get your opinion on something because when I listen to Samson, there seems to be a level of bitterness in some of the things that he said in the recent past in regards to Terence Crawford. And to me, when you say things like he's looking for a payday, that's very clear to me that you have a level of disdain for the man to some degree. And I think it's tied to the fact that he was trying to usurp uh, David Benavidez for the opportunity to face Canelo Alvarez. That's just my opinion. And I think there's some bitterness tied to that, Jay. And I think because of that bitterness, there could be some movement there in terms of trying to navigate Sebastian Fundora away from Terence Crawford and maybe in a different direction. Now, I'm not saying that there's not validity to some of the comments that he made in terms of Errol Spence selling more. I think Errol would sell more because when I think
Mm-hmm.
about Terence Crawford versus Sebastian Fundora, I think roughly 150,000 pay-per-view buys or less. We'll see what Tim Zoo ends up doing, but that's roughly where I think. But when you think about Errol Spence coming back, and he still has a lot of support across social media, on YouTube, I think that would be a fairly big fight. But be that as it may, do you feel that Sampson has a level of bitterness towards Terence Crawford tied to David Benavidez? Just your thoughts on that.
100%. I mean, the way he was being, trying to jump the line on David Benavidez in that Canelo fight was crazy. He kept going on that, putting his name in there, muddying the waters. So it takes all the focus off of David Benavidez Canelo fight. And now he's throwing his name in the hat. Even though Canelo said he would never fight him because he doesn't get any credit for fighting, but it's still, you're putting your name in there. You're adding another factor in a situation that shouldn't be there. So I mean, I understand him being a little jaded on that. He did say something. He hasn't said anything too nice about, but I will push back on Samson. One thing that he did say on the interview, saying that Crawford's style is not fan friendly. I will push back on that. He's not Devin Haney. He's not a jab, jab, jab only type fighter. He's a fighter, so I won't agree with Samson on that. I think, but fighting style is fan friendly for the most part because he's had 11 straight knockouts. Now he did say that the issue also with Bud was the charisma aspect, and you and I have talked about Bud not being, Marco because of his charisma, how he's not really fan friendly in that aspect there. I mean, we've liked him a lot better more recently after the Spence fight because he actually started showing more of his personality a little bit. But Samson was like, yeah, the charisma is not really there to make the Fundora fight a big sell like it should be.
Shout out to Ray Jack for bringing out the personality of Terence Crawford on Twitter. Ray
Facts.
Jack brings out the best of everybody. But nah, man, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I'm curious to see who ends up getting that fight. If Fundora truly cannot come back until November, regardless of whether or not he gives a rematch to Tim Zoo or if he moves forward with Terence Crawford. I mean, does Crawford really want to be on the shelf till November? I mean, then that'll make
Exactly.
almost a year and a half since he's fought. That's not good for his career at that moment. And I think what Terence Crawford at that point will be almost 37 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think either Terence Crawford nor Errol Spence will wait around for that. So maybe this whole thing might be on hold, and each one of these fighters are going to have to go in a different direction. But you guys tell us what you think in the comments section in regards to this fight. It'll be interesting to see what ends up playing out here over the next several weeks. Let us know what you think. Don't forget to hate, like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Angry Man Podcast, AM Sports Media, and we are out.